We are talking sustainable aviation fuel. Report out of the folks at Bloomberg say Brazilian-grown sugarcane ethanol shipments have begun arriving in the U.S., a plant in Georgia to produce sustainable aviation fuel. Well, on the telephone line with us right now is Tom Buis, CEO of the American Carbon Alliance. Tom, I guess this is irritating on a couple of levels. Number one, why are they using Brazilian ethanol? And number two, that plant was built there probably with the idea that they would be using an American stock. I mean, they could have built it in South America and been a lot closer to Brazilian ethanol than what they are now. So kind of tell me what's going on.
Well, it's really disappointing that they're using Brazilian sugarcane ethanol when the United States is the biggest ethanol producer in the world, and we have the capacity to produce plenty of ethanol as a feedstock. But the way the carbon index modeling has worked, it's worked against American ethanol by basically saying that we're not a low-carbon fuel. The administration is working on rolling out something later today, in fact, on updating their modeling. Hopefully it's a good news scenario, so they use the Greek model. We're not sure, as opposed to an international model that doesn't reflect modern agriculture, doesn't reflect modern ethanol production, and is based on a lot of really kind of emotional indirect land use change penalties that aren't really realistic. So we'll see how that goes. But the bottom line is, until U.S. ethanol qualifies as a low-carbon fuel, they're not going to make sustainable aviation fuel out of it. And that's why it's important to for ethanol plants to capture the carbon, sequester it. And, you know, there's projects ongoing out there. You got the Summit Pipeline, which is going to capture the carbon from 57 ethanol plants in the Midwest who aren't living in a geological or an area where you have the geological formation to pump it directly into the ground. And then the other thing is ethanol plants that are, like in Illinois and the Eastern Corn Belt, where they can pump it straight down, or North Dakota. But that's the future. And if we don't take those steps, we won't get that demand pull from sustainable aviation fuel, which could be up to 50 billion gallons by down the road, and certainly 3 billion gallons by 2030.
Tom, a quick question here. Unless they are putting oars in the water and moving that Brazilian ethanol by hand, they've got to be adding carbon in just by the shipping on it. How close are we? I mean, I guess, are we close to getting into this plant?
We got to be able to get into this plant. And, you know, once we get the credit for capturing the carbon, we'll be able to produce it. And the productive capacity of the American ethanol industry is just like the productive capacity of farmers. We can produce more. They keep getting more efficient. It keeps getting cleaner. It keeps getting greener. Keeps getting cheaper. So it's a perfect solution. The airlines want it. As a matter of fact, we just are part of a new a coalition that was rolled out yesterday called the Sustainable Aviation Fuels Coalition. You got all the airlines on there. You got the airline manufacturers. You got people who produce or have the capacity to produce sustainable aviation fuel, and they're all saying the same thing. We need this to move forward. We need to make it an American product. Let's put the profitability back into America's farmers in our rural communities and not into the Brazilian economy.
Tom, we hear also that there is a plant, I believe in South Dakota, that may be qualifying. So we must be getting close.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with plans out there to qualify. GEVO out in South Dakota has plans. You know, you have Marcus Energy over in Illinois that are doing it. There's a lot of people that they're ready to go. We just need to get that approval on that carbon index. And one way to do it, again, is capturing the carbon. It's easy to do at an ethanol plant because the only thing that goes up that smokestack is steam and carbon. So you don't have to separate out from a lot of different chemicals. It's easily processed, and very frankly, economically, it's easy to ship long distances if you do it in a pipeline.
Got about 30 seconds here. How big a market would aviation fuel be compared to car and truck fuel?
Well, it's huge, 50 billion gallons nationwide. And if you look at overall fuel for cars and light-duty trucks in America, you're probably looking at 150 billion gallons annually.
So it could be a big contributor.
Increase.
Yeah, it could be a big contributor.